Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel to discuss all things aviation. Angela Dube here, welcoming you back. Today we're in conversation with Pilot Sipho Mangesi, all the way from the Eastern Cape, a little village in the Eastern Cape, and he is indeed a village boy that has pursued his dream, did not allow, his humble background to stand in the way of what he has always wanted to do. And I hope that you will actually be inspired by his story as he takes us through, how he overcame hurdles that were before him to eventually enter that cockpit.
Welcome, Sipho, and thank you for agreeing to talk with us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am truly humbled. Really, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to just come and share my experiences, with the people. I do not take it lightly. I'm truly humbled. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Perhaps at the very beginning, you might just want to tell us about yourself, whatever you think is important for an aviator, an aspiring aviator to know, whatever you feel comfortable with. Yes.
I don't think there's anything I'm uncomfortable with. I come from a village in the Eastern Cape, Namakwe. Mm-hmm. It's a small village. Growing up in that village, at that time, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water. We didn't have facilities. In fact, I had to write my name on the sand because we didn't even have books and stationery at the time, So we would go outside and write the alphabets. Okay. So that's where I come from, and I'm comfortable sharing this story. I'm not even apologetic because everything has worked out for good to get me to where I am. But people, I feel there's a greater need for people to hear this type of stories because I think it enables them to know that, hey man, if this person is coming from a village like this, and he managed to become a pilot, then maybe so can I. It's possible, So that's where I come from. I couldn't even speak English. I couldn't even speak English.
Wow.
The first English phrase I learned was, "My name is Sipho Mangesi." That's what I was taught.
Okay.
And looking back, in retrospect, I feel that it was not a coincidence because going forward now, in the future, in my career, I'm always going to be coming in, getting ready for work, sitting in that cockpit of that 747, 737, that big machine.
Yeah.
But one thing is going to be consistent is saying, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sipho Mangesi and I'll be a captain for this flight, which is the first English phrase I learned back in the village, So that's where I come from. This thing of camping, people going on camps. I feel like for me, it was my life every day. These days people, they put candles and they say it's a romantic, which is fine. It's good and well, it's romantic.
Yeah.
But for me, I grew up that way. It was candles every day. So that is where I come from, and coming from a place like that, I didn't even dream of becoming a pilot at that time, because then how do you even dream of something you don't even know exists?
True. True.
But I think we'll talk about that as we getting in more and more into the conversation. But that's where I come from.
Okay.
I'm a village boy.
I like that. I like that because not many people will embrace, I would say, their villageness, because it's, over time, being from the village has been looked at as not being fashionable or not being sexy.
Yeah.
But the more of us who are village boys who come out and listen, I'm a village boy, and today I'm this and this and that because I went out and I achieved it.
Yeah.
I like that. Second thing I like from your story is you say you used to write on the sand. Scribble things on the sand. In my talks with my father, he used to say they didn't have books or exercise books at school. They used to have something called a slate, and I think it was made of stone.
Okay.
And you would write on it, whatever the teacher says, you write on it, and then you erase it. Now, because we had exercise books during my time, I thought, How did you guys pass? Then I realized that generation came from, a position of struggle. And because of that, they did more. They could memorize things, because you write on the slate, you erase. When it's time for maths, you erase the English lesson. You write mathematics, then you erase, and you wait for science on the same piece of stone. I'm like, wow. So your story
on the
really,
same piece of stone.
yeah,
Yeah.
quite interesting. And then you also say your first English phrase was, "My name is Sipho Mangesi," and I'm sure that has stuck with you to this day. It has formed who you are
Forever. Forever. It has stuck with me. And the interesting thing about that is that it really has stuck with me. When I left the village, it gets very interesting. When I left the village, I went to a multiracial school where they spoke English. Okay, they spoke proper English. But now I didn't understand the English they spoke there, because the only line I knew was just one. My name is Sipho Mangesi, right?
Yeah.
So the teacher could give instructions, in English, of course, and say something simple like, "Okay, class, today we're doing exercise 1." And I wouldn't respond because I didn't know that. The only thing I knew was, my name is Sipho Mangesi, right? So the teacher would notice that, "Hey, but this student is not responding. What's going on with this student?" So he'd come to me, "Hey, you, take out your book." And then I would see that she's talking to me, and I would get up and say, "My name is Sipho."
Wow.
That's the only English phrase I knew.
Yeah.
And yes, indeed, it has stuck with me throughout the years. Even today, it's still stuck with me. So the only difference now is that now, going forward, when I speak, I'm still going to embrace it, but now I'm going to speak with authority.
Yes.
To say, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sipho Mangesi. I'll be a captain for this flight." So everything has just worked out together for good. It was not a coincidence that I grew up the way that I did to where I am today.
The way things work, my goodness. You were basically being trained to introduce yourself, to speak with authority.
I'm telling you.
Lovely.
Exactly.
And of course, with English being the operating language in aviation, that's already prepared you for what lies ahead.
Yeah, it has. So I feel like everything really, it has come together. Really, there's a scripture. I keep saying this. I'm taking it from a scripture. Another thing, I'm a strong believer in the gospel. I'm a strong believer in God. So there's a scripture that says all things work together for good. So I take that and I look into my life and I look at all the things that have happened. They have all worked together for good to shape me to become the person that I am today. So yeah, it has just worked out. I'm also a jazz musician.
Oh my goodness, an all-rounder.
Piano. Yeah. I play piano, keyboards, bass guitar, lead guitar, acoustic, drums, and yeah. So I play at church as well in the worship team. I play in the band. I'm a music director there. So yeah. And I love cars. Yeah, I'm also a how can I put it? I'm an advanced driver. I like going to the racetrack and just do these advanced driving maneuvers, defensive driving.
Basically, you love conquering engines, eh?
I'm telling you. That is me. Yeah.
No,
I love it so much. Yeah.
That's interesting, man. It's a very balanced approach to the whole thing, because everyone needs to have a spiritual belief of sorts. I often say,
I completely agree.
Even atheists, the fact that they believe in nothing means they believe in that something called nothing. So, but it is a belief system.
Exactly.
It's
a belief system on its own. Exactly.
Yeah.
I always say that. I always say that. You believing inside, the fact that you believe that there's no greater power and that's your belief.
It's a belief.
It's a belief. It is.
All right. Now,
I completely agree.
Okay, awesome, awesome. You grow up in the village. You do your primary
Yeah.
school there and your high school there as well, or you move to town.
No.
Yeah.
No. I moved during primary.
Uh-huh.
I then moved to town. Still during my early stages of life. It was still in primary.
Okay.
High school. I did it in East London.
Mm-hmm.
In a township in
Yeah.
a township in East London.
Okay.
So that's why I did my high school. I had already left the village.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
So now your studies in high school, of course, you took particular subjects, and I remember in high school what influenced our choices for subjects sometimes was not necessarily our goals, but sometimes it was because our friends are taking these subjects, and so we followed.
Yeah.
What subjects did
Yeah.
you do, and do you think they helped you in aviation?
So you see, the thing is that when it was time for me to choose subjects in high school,
Mm-hmm.
at that stage I didn't know that I was going to become a pilot. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was curious about airplanes. Yes, I wanted to know how they work, how they fly, but I didn't think it was possible for someone who looks like me, who grew up the way that I did. Didn't think it was possible for them to become pilots. So even when choosing subjects, I was not thinking about aviation. In fact, I thought I was going to become an engineer because I was very good with my hands. I could fix everything at home.
Mm-hmm.
From electrical appliances, I was the handyman.
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought I would go into engineering. So I chose maths and science. Those are my subjects. And then I still had to choose others, just to fill the gaps. To fill the gaps, I chose geography and biology and English, which was compulsory. Okay. So later on, when I came into aviation, got into flying, I realized that all the subjects that I had chosen were actually an added bonus or an advantage, because in aviation we have navigation and meteorology, which is geography, which I'd done in high school. We also have a subject in aviation called human performance, which is basically biology, which I've done in high school as well. And then you've got a little bit of your maths and science. So once again, you see how everything has just worked together.
It works out.
Good.
Yeah, it does.
At that stage, I didn't even know. So it has just worked out. I didn't even know at the time that these subjects would help me in the future, in aviation. I was just thinking I would become an engineer. So it really, everything for me has just worked out for good.
Nothing happens without a reason.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what I picked up from your story. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then the big question.
Okay.
You decide to become a pilot. At what stage of your life did the aviation bug hit you? How old were you and how did it hit you?
Okay. I don't really know how old I was when it hit me, but I was still very young in the village. Aeroplanes used to fly above us. Okay. And now I can imagine it could have been above 30,000, feet. Above 30,000, that's how high airliners fly. But on a clear day when there's no clouds, you can see that there's an aeroplane out there flying. So there's this thing we used to do when aeroplanes fly above us. We used to do something like whoa and wave and say also. And say, sweetie.
Oh my goodness. I thought I was the only one on the sweet thingy. Because we all
you know that story.
No, we all waved and shouted, bring us some sweets, blah 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 blah. What?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, continue.
So I used to do that. In fact, in the entire village, we used to do that. All right. Now, that's the only time we ever got to see aeroplanes. We had never been to the airport, never been in an aeroplane. that's the only time we saw aeroplanes.
Hmm.
So I had this curiosity about how an aeroplane flies. For the life of me, I always try to figure out how does it fly.
Mm.
And then at some stage, I realized that an aeroplane has got wings like a bird, which explained how an aeroplane flies, but still did not explain how it turned left and right, up and down. So I tried my very best to try and understand the aerodynamics. How does this aeroplane, how does it work? And since that time, the curiosity has always been with me. All the way up to high school, curiosity was always there. So I don't really know exactly what age I was, but I just know that I was curious. I wanted to know more about aeroplanes. That's it. So it all started in the village when we used to do that. Whoa, bring us sweets, bring us this and that and that. That's where it all started.
Mm.
All right. Even though I did not think that I could become a pilot.
Mm.
In fact, I didn't even know that someone who flies an airplane is called a pilot. Even though I didn't know anything about aviation, I was still curious.
Mm.
That's it. It's just a curiosity that was sparked when an aeroplane flew past in the village. That's
Right.
it.
And that curiosity obviously led you down the path of searching for more knowledge. Eventually, you started out with your intro flight, your PPL, and worked your way all the way up to where you are now as an instructor.
Yeah.
Take us through the
Yeah.
journey to aviation training.
Okay. All right. So before even the getting into flying school, in a high school, I happened to come across an advertisement. I was in grade 12, I think. Yes. I happened to come across an advertisement in the newspaper where the Air Force was recruiting pilots. I met the minimum requirements, so I applied. I was called in for a selection process in Pretoria. All right. So I went there. They picked me up at Bosman Station, a place called Bosman Station in Pretoria.
Yeah, I see that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And they took me to the Air Force Base. All right. So for the very first time in my life, when I went for that selection, I saw an aeroplane. And it was the first time I saw an aeroplane in front of me. I even got into one. I even got into one. It wasn't moving, but hey, I was so excited to get into an aeroplane. For the first time in my life, you see, at that moment, the little curiosity I had was just multiplied by 100.
I can imagine.
I knew that, hey, yeah, this is what I want to do. If I wasn't sure at first, I am definitely sure now moving forward. And that happened when I said, when I got onto that aeroplane. So this was at the Air Force for a selection process. Now, the selection process, I was young at that time. So I'm not really sure what happened with the Air Force, but the training never got off the ground. It never happened. But now at that stage, I had gathered information about general aviation. We were even given some books and some magazines, some aviation magazines at the Air Force there, So that opened my eyes, and I realized that there's actually other avenues. I can actually become a pilot, by going into a flying school. So I went and I enrolled myself into a flying school. All right. So for me, the first challenge was firstly dreaming about becoming a pilot. So, because there was no information in the village, right? So you don't really dream about it because you don't know it exists.
That's true.
Now, once the interest was sparked, it's how do you dream about something that you don't even know is there, right? So that was the first challenge for me. Now, when the interest was sparked, I even got into the first for the selection process. The interest was there. Now I'm dreaming. Good. I've overcome challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 was getting into an air school and realizing how expensive flight training was.
Yes.
I quickly realized that, hey, I cannot afford this. Now the dream is there. The aviation has, bike has bit me. I am there. I'm excited. I want to do this. Now the second challenge is, how am I going to pay for this? And that was one of the biggest challenges in my life so far. So I got into the flying school. Yes, my parents had saved some money for me to go. They thought I was going to become an engineer, right? So they went, cashed out some policies. But the thing is that in aviation, you think you are ready. You think you financially, it's just like going to school. You think you're ready.
That's true.
Until you get there and you realize that, hey, all your life savings can actually run out within a week of flying.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge for me, in that air school was paying for the fees, right? In fact, even getting my first license, which is the PPL, took me close to 4 years, okay? And to just give perspective to other people who might not know what a PPL is and how long it takes. This is the first flying license that you get, and it takes less than a year. It takes a couple of months to PPL. Okay. Now with me, because I didn't have the money, it took me close to 4 years, because I would go to school, do training for a little bit, run out of funds, and stay at home. I spent the majority of my training at home. And as a result, the training took so much long. Now within 4 years, the people that I had started flying with had progressed so much in their careers. Some they all had their commercial licenses. Some were flying for good companies. Some had even become instructors and were instructing me. Imagine the same people I had started with were now teaching me. So it was a painful moment. It was frustrating. It really was painful. And even the people in my community, they looked at me like, this guy, he's wasting his time. What is he doing? And there's this question that our people like to ask when they see you in the street.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing this year? What are you doing this year? And that question used to bother me so much, because it looked like I was not going anywhere in life.
It's either that question or
it looked like this.
It's either that question or when are you finishing?
Yeah. When are you finishing? Those questions, they used to bother me so much. They used to bother me so much. So you see, where I come from, there was no one who's a pilot. As a result, when I went and embarked on this journey of becoming a pilot, the people around me did not believe that someone from the village could become a pilot. So really, there was people were not rooting for me at all. The only person who supported the vision from day one was my mother. My father wasn't so sure at first, but he also realized how badly I wanted it, and he came to the party. And so they just supported me. Eventually, after in and out of school, back and forth, I got my PPL. After that 4 years, eventually I got my PPL, and after that, I managed to get a bursary from the Department of Transport, and that's how I was able to finish and get my commercial license, and then later on become an instructor. Got my instructor rating as well. So that's how I was able to do it.
That's an inspiring story.
It's been a long road.
It's been
a long road.
Yeah. the level of commitment, the level of dedication that must come with that. Your PPL story, for instance, is typical of most African aviators I know. It doesn't take the few months that it's supposed to, because you run out of funds so quickly, and it takes you forever to raise enough funds for the next block of hours.
Exactly.
But you held on. You held on. How did you overcome some of those lows? For instance, you say that the people you started with, advanced in their career, and some of them even became instructors. That's fine. But now they were instructing you. And at some point you were peers. But now they're coming in. And how did you handle that?
It was a very difficult time. It was extremely painful for me. You know, sure, it was hard. The only thing that kept me going was faith. I just knew in me that I am going to become a commercial pilot, you know, and that faith then activated, you know, the perseverance, the dedication, the hard work. You know, I feel like because I knew that, you know, the situation right now is what it is. You know, I don't have the money to study. Yes, people, you know, they even labeled me, you know, at the air school, like, this person is just lazy, or this one is not serious about life, because they don't really understand, they don't know your situation.
I know those stereotypes.
Exactly. And then even in the community, people talk and it looks like you're not moving. Okay. So it really just takes its toll on you. It really does. So believing that I'm going to make it one day has kept me going. You know, yes, look, you need to have the perseverance, you need the dedication, you need, you know, hard work and all of those things. But I believe that hard work and dedication, perseverance, all of those things will never happen without you first and foremost believing that I am going to overcome this. So I think the greatest challenge is in your mind. You first have to see yourself becoming a pilot. You first have to believe and have faith that at the end of the day, even if it takes me 5 years, even if it takes me 10 years, at the end of the day, I'm going to become a pilot. It is then easier for you to work hard towards that. It is then easier for you to, you know, to persevere and hold on, because you believe in your heart, in your mind, you believe that this is attainable and I'm going to do it. I think once you start doubting that this looks like it's not possible, when you start losing faith, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get up in the morning and work hard. You know? So I think the greatest thing for me was having faith.
Okay, you are pointing towards motivation, you know, a state of mind.
Yeah.
Believing that thoughts will eventually manifest as things. What you think, because you cannot be thinking negative thoughts and suddenly have positive results. It just cannot work.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Having a belief system around which, you know, your dream is built is also critical, and that's what kept you going.
Absolutely, it kept me going.
Awesome.
I could have given in.
Yeah.
I could have, but that belief system really has kept me believing that I'm going to achieve this goal. Is what kept me going. It's what allowed me to work even hard. You know, to not give up. It's that belief. As a man thinketh, so is he.
Yeah, it's all in here. From here, it will manifest.
It's exactly. It starts there.
So
that's what has helped me.
And in this industry, you need a lot of that, because if you don't have the mental strength, you will not get anywhere.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
What would you say were your highlights? You know, we've had the lows, the challenges. Some were monetary, some were societal. But what were the highlights? Things that happened during your training, and you know, after they happened, you had that bounce in your step, even as you walked. You know, you felt like, no, I'm the man. What are those type of things that happen?
Okay, all right. For me, the biggest highlight of my entire life thus far was getting my PPL, my private pilot license, and taking my very first passengers, which was my mom and dad.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the greatest moment of my life. I had just gotten my wings. So the very first passengers I took were my parents. So that for me was the biggest highlight You know, it even today, I don't think there's anything bigger than that for me. That was the most, it's the highlight of my life. Now, after,
Okay,
after
so,
that,
sorry, can I interject?
Okay.
Family is family. They know you can fly. They know you are now a qualified pilot. You've gotten your first license. CAA has seen it fit to grant you that license because you've demonstrated your competency. But to your mother, you're just his boy. That's all there is. Even though she knows very well you're qualified, but that's just my boy. How did she handle the whole thing?
My mom she's very courageous. She doesn't get she doesn't get scared easily. So she was excited.
Yeah.
My dad, on the other hand, though, my dad was a bit skeptical. Like, hey, is this boy really gonna do this thing?
Okay.
So we went there, and my little sister was also there. So the whole family was there.
Okay.
I took them flying. It was really a great experience, and the greatest experience of my life. After that, I took my grandmother, who had never had the opportunity to fly before. Yeah.
What are you doing to the old lady? Yay.
You know what? Actually, she was so excited as well. People thought, hey, the grandmother is going to be very scared. She's not going to, she's not going to like this. She's not going to take this very well. But you know what? She said the most powerful thing, which will stay with me forever. She said that it's my grandson flying that plane. And my grandson can fly. My grandson is competent. And my grandson will never do anything that will harm me. She was so excited. She was like, I'm getting on that plane. She had so much faith in me.
That's some serious affirmation.
Yeah. So I took my grandmother after that. And then after that, I took the whole of the Eastern Cape, if I can call it that. Because you see, to get your commercial license, you have to have 100 hours PIC, 100 hours pilot in command.
Yeah.
So for me, building those hours, I never had any single flight where I flew by myself alone and had empty seats. I always made sure that I take someone who's never had the opportunity flying. So I would write on my social media that, hey, I'm looking for people who've never had the opportunity to fly before. I would go to schools, go to schools in the village, find people who've never had the opportunity to fly before, even run some competitions to say whoever gets the highest marks is going to go fly with me, to motivate the kids. And I went to as many schools as I could and took as many people as I could flying. And I would write there's groups on social media where people are traveling between one town and the other. So people would always write there that, hey, I'm looking for a lift. I'm going between A and B. So I would go there and say, hey, listen, let me take you on a plane. And I took people flying. And you see here in the Eastern Cape, people hitchhike a lot. They go on the side of the road and they hitchhike like this. Or sometimes they'll write on a piece of paper a board to say, I'm going to the next town.
Yeah.
So I even went to those people to say, listen, man, I see hitchhiking. Let me take you on a plane. Obviously, people are a bit skeptical because they don't believe that this one is a pilot and he's going to take me on a flight for free. Because that's another thing. I said, listen, this is for free. I'm not charging you anything. It's free, And people were like, hey, is this legit? But when I started doing this and it got known by people, even the media started writing about me. I started appearing on newspapers and radio stations and TV. And people thought, hey, this is legit. So people are just excited. And I flew all those hours making sure that I take someone who's never had the opportunity to fly. So for me, being able to, to give that experience to someone else was also one of the highlights, in my flying career, especially the people in the village who've never had the opportunity to fly. Because some of those people, you ask them, especially the students in high school, you ask them, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'll say like, if I can just get a job working at so-and-so's farm, if I can just work as a shepherd boy
Yeah.
or I would have made it in life, because that's the only life they know. So for me, being able to take them flying, showing them that there's a bigger world out there, showing them a different perspective, showing them that, hey, this is all within your reach, you know, allowing them to dream even bigger. Being able to do that was also one of the highlights, of the highlights in my flying career. So
yeah, you have given back, man. It's commendable. I mean, if every aviator would do what you did, we could actually reach out
thank you so
even
much.
to the village child, because my belief is that the village child is neglected in the republic. You know, they are
Yeah,
far from everything, far from information. Even when they see an aircraft, they see it at in excess of 30,000 feet. It's a tiny
exactly.
dot in the sky. Whereas the
Exactly.
child in the urban sector, in the location, you know, in the township, in the urban sector,
Exactly.
will
Exactly.
see an aircraft on final approach or having just taken off low-level flights, because
Or we've been
that's
on
where
it.
traffic
We've been,
is.
yeah. Or maybe better yet, they fly on these aeroplanes
Yes,
all the time. So they're
yes, true,
exposed.
true. Yeah,
Can I just add something to what you're saying? Please allow
yes.
me to add something.
Uh-huh.
You know, if you look at the statistics at the end of the year, you know, when we're talking about you know, the grade 12s, how well they do, statistics in terms of the pass rate.
Oh yes.
The Eastern Cape is always at the low. It's always at the bottom, somewhere there in at the bottom 2, bottom 3, but it's always there, right there at the bottom. You know, and I've come to realize that the reason for that is because it's that the Eastern Cape is still predominantly rural.
That's true.
The majority of the Eastern Cape is villages. Yes, we have cities like East London and cities like Port Elizabeth, but the majority of the Eastern Cape is rural. It's villages, and that's where I come from. And these are villages where children, even today, still walk distances and cross rivers to get to school. If the river is full, they can't cross. Children today still have to go and fetch water and make fires. You know, I've come across students, you know, when I was doing my outreaches, to ask them, you know, so what's your motivation? Why do you go to school? Some of them have told me that I only go to school because we get given free food at break. Imagine.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we are predominantly rural in the Eastern Cape. There's no internet access. There's no libraries. There's no Google and YouTube and all these other things that people in the cities have. As a result, kids in these villages don't dream beyond their circumstances. And you can even see this in the metric pass rate. The statistics are showing that the Eastern Cape, I think KZN and other provinces, but notice all the provinces that are predominantly rural at the bottom. And it's not because they are not smart enough. It's simply because they don't have access to information. You know? So really, if we as aviators can go back there, if you've got the chance or an opportunity, take a child flying. You know, it will really change their life. It'll really show them that there's a bigger world out there, and it'll allow them to dream even bigger. So
Yeah,
really,
that's a very, very loaded statement, and it's very true. It speaks to our reality.
Yeah, it's our reality. It's our reality. So we are struggling in the villages.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Okay.
It's bad.
Any other highlights?
Well, look, the goal has always been to become a commercial pilot, right? So when that eventually happened, I could call myself a professional in aviation. That was a big highlight for me, because look, with the PPL, you're not really a professional yet, you know, because it is not a professional qualification. Okay, you cannot work with a PPL. So as much as I was a private pilot, a PPL, I really was not a professional yet. I couldn't work in aviation. So when I got my commercial pilot license, I felt like really now, you know, I'm a professional, and it was a big deal for me. It's a big thing for me to come from where I come from and make it to become a commercial pilot. That was just big. It was a big highlight for me. And then on top of that, training and even becoming a flight instructor, being able to now teach other pilots. So that's just big for me. It's big. It's a big achievement for me, especially given the fact that I come from where I come from and I went through the things that I went through. So that's also one of the biggest highlights.
Basically, from writing in the sand to filling out flight plans, it's just been yeah, that's some serious movement there.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna write that as a caption when I post on social media. Please allow me to use that.
No, go ahead and use it.
From writing in the sand to filling out flight logs.
Flight
flight logs and flight plans. Oh, that's powerful.
You should.
That's so powerful.
Wow.
So yes,
I'm inspired by your story every minute indeed.
Thank you so much.
The next point I want us to discuss is stems from statistics in the South African aviation sector. Although the CAA is not up to date with their statistics, I tried to find the most relevant, and I think online I could only get 2017, which I think is still good enough. Because it's just 2 years ago. Now, when you look at those statistics, when you look at the diversity in the numbers, it's a very gloomy picture. Number one, in terms of gender, women are not represented in the cockpit. I think if you look at ATPL holders, they are less than 10% women who hold the ATPL. And then again, if you disaggregate those statistics in terms of race, which is critical in South Africa because of our history and the calls for transformation and so forth. You realize that us Africans are still such a minute, little detail in as far as lessons are concerned. What do you think are the reasons behind this, number one, and what could be done, by all stakeholders in society to change this narrative?
Okay, right. First and foremost, I think the awareness. People of color, our people are not exposed to aviation, and that's a reality. They are not exposed to aviation. So we have to just go out there and just give as much information as we can. Number one. Number two, after we have exposed them to aviation, let us ourselves be visible role models. I think it's important for someone or for a child who is in a village, to see a pilot like me, a pilot like you, who looks exactly like them, who speaks the same language that they speak, who comes from the same area and has faced the same challenges. See this person as a commercial pilot. It's important for them to see us as role models, because then they can relate to us. We speak the same language, we've got the same hair, texture. We come from the same, background. So for them to see us becoming, pilots and actually flying aeroplanes, the onus is on us to now be visible role models in societies. When they see us flying, let them know that, hey, this person comes from this village. This person stays just down the road here. He's a commercial pilot. So maybe there's hope for me too. So I think we have to go out there and just not only visible, but relatable role models as well. They must be able to relate to us. So when we are there in the cockpit, let's not just be comfortable by being there, flying the big airplane, earning good money. Behind closed doors. The cockpit door is closed. People don't see what's happening. So let's open that door and be visible to to the people. Let's be visible and relatable. Okay, so when I go back to the village, I'm gonna speak isiXhosa to them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna speak to them in a language that they know, and they saying that, hey, this person is one of us, and he is flying an aeroplane today. So there's hope for us too. So I think there's this. You know, I made an example about Miss Universe. You know, in one of the interviews, Miss Universe, Uzozi. Zozi Tunzi. I personally think one of the reasons we love her so much as people of color is that, number one, she is one of us. She looks like us. She speaks our language. And number two, she's relatable.
Yeah.
Okay. She comes from the same area. So when we see her, our hope is inspired. Our hope is renewed, you know. So I think it's important really to be visible and audible, okay. And then with the females in aviation, okay, I think we also have a responsibility to just go out there and crush the stereotypes and break the barriers. You know, there's a stereotype that you know, girls belong only in the kitchen.
Yes.
Or girls, the only thing they are good for is doing house chores and all of those things. We need to crush those stereotypes and show them, hey, listen, you can actually fly a plane. You know, you don't need to be manly. It's not a manly thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can do it too. So I feel we have a huge responsibility as aviators of color who are there to go out there and pave the way for the next generation of aviators.
No, those are very relevant points that we, you know, because you know,
Exactly.
we are the forerunners, and therefore those who come after us must be able to get guidance and counsel from us. We need to be available, because in life you must be a mentor, and you must also have mentors who mentor you. You know,
absolutely
take from some and give to others. It's the only way we can basically to keep passing down the baton for the next guy or the next girl to run in the race. You're touching on one point. I was chatting to a fellow pilot from Kenya. She's a woman, and two things stuck out with me from her conversation. Number one, that her grandmother asked her that you're going to be a pilot, but you don't have muscles. How are you going to fly? And so she had to sit her down and explain. And it's not a masculine thing. You know, it's all up here. You know, and then the second thing she said was her niece, I think she's probably below 5 years old. Her niece believes that pilots are women. So when she sees a male pilot, she's confused. Like, a male pilot, because auntie is a woman and auntie flies. Now, what is this man doing, dressing up like auntie? You know?
Yes, it goes back to that thing of being a visible role model.
Yeah.
Because her aunt is a role model to her, and she knows that, hey, people who fly planes look like this.
Yes.
You know, so therefore I can fly you too. My aunt does it. So that's why I'm saying we have a big responsibility to go out there and show people who look like us, who come from where we come from, that, hey, man, this is something that's attainable.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I like that.
Awesome stuff. We are nearing the end of our chat.
So soon.
Yeah, so soon. Yeah, time flies. But now at this point, I want you to talk to young people, you know, aspiring aviators. Let me not say young people, because some people will discover midway through their life that they need to swap, you know, their qualifications. And let's just say aspiring aviators, someone who really wants to start on this journey. And whatever words of wisdom you can share, whatever experiential elements you can share with them from your own journey.
Okay. I would say to them, never stop believing. Okay? Never stop believing. The sky is not the limit. The sky is not the limit. I'll say it again. Okay? In fact, there is no limits. All right? So aviation for me has been a long, dark road. It's been a long, dark road. And what kept me going is that spirit of never stop believing. I never stopped believing that I was going to make it as a commercial pilot. Okay, because once you stop believing, chances are you will stop midway your training. Because it's a long, difficult road. Okay, so once you stop believing, you might stop and give up before you reach your goal. So I would like to say to everyone out there, if you are wanting to get into aviation, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not glamorous at first. You don't just fly nice big airplanes in and out of hotels, traveling the world. It's not as glamorous, at the beginning. Yes, that does come later, but at the beginning, it's a long, dark, painful road. Okay, so never stop believing. Never stop believing. All right, the sky is not the limit. That's it. The limits are only the limits are in your mind only.
They're self-imposed.
They self-imposed. So the sky is not even the limit.
I like that. It ties in. One of my life's philosophies is whether you think you can or you can't. Either way, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Either way, you're right.
No,
so your mindset is so important. Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything that I needed to cover in today's talk, and I must say it was very, very inspirational. Knowing your background, knowing how gloomy it looked at first. My first encounter with formal education was under a tree. I always tell my kids that. My first encounter was under a tree. And on rainy days, there was no class. So I learned very early to differentiate between haze and drizzle. Because I would wake up and look in the horizon and like, it's going to rain today, no school. Yeah! And then I realized an hour later, it's not raining. That was haze.
Yeah. You see how it works out together for good. You see how that has shaped your life. So it's not a coincidence that we went through the things that we went through.
True. That's true. Because now coming to meteorology in aviation, I had to apply,
I'm sure you
my knowledge of haze and mist and drizzly goes back to 4 years old,
Exactly. The things that we were only reading on textbooks, you had physically seen.
Exactly.
At 4 years.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
So
quite interesting, man. Quite interesting.
Captain, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Boots.
Indeed, time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe that interview has just come to an end, but I hope that you have been inspired by Sipho's resolve, Sipho's tenacity, and his die-hard attitude, his never give up attitude. Because I mean, you've heard how he overcame hurdles, how he overcame negative talk, how he overcame lack of support at times. But most importantly, you heard how he actually gave back during his training as well. And I hope that you took a lot of pointers from his interview on how you can approach your own journey towards the cockpit. Remember that with every hour the cockpit beckons, so keep adding those hours, whether it's an hour of studying, an hour of watching this channel, an hour of telling others about this channel, an hour of adding those flight hours, whatever it is that you're deciding to spend your hour on, because with every hour the cockpit beckons. I hope that Sipho inspired you and his story gave you the momentum that you needed to keep rolling, to keep moving towards the achievement of your own goal. Until next time, Angelo Julie here saying cheers and keep well.